Let's talk about David Reese, a defensive end entering, I believe, his 8th season of college football. And I think David Reese, I may have already said this on Locked on Syracuse, but it's been a while. I think he's maybe the most underrated pickup that Syracuse football had this offseason. Think about all the pickups that they have done, right? They got 2 quarterbacks, Steve Angeli, Rickie Collins, quarterback battle, huge. Jonte Cook, former 5-star player in 2023. All the offensive line additions that they made, all the departures that they had. But very quietly, Syracuse got themselves a pretty decent pass rusher. Now, he's only going to be here for 1 year, but they got themselves a pretty solid pass rusher in David Reese. And I think he's going to start along this defensive line. And he's got a tough task ahead of him. He's got to replace a guy in Fadil Diggs, who was arguably Syracuse's best defender a year ago. And to prove my point, he's in the NFL and he was drafted in the 7th round by the New Orleans Saints. But David Reese, over the past 2 seasons at Cal, which is a power conference team, has amassed 11 sacks. How many other players on Syracuse's defensive line can say that? 11 sacks over the past 2 seasons in a power conference. The answer is 0. That's it. It is only David Reese. So when you're talking about his experience in college football, combined with the fact that he's had a pretty decent last couple of years over at Cal, he's a pretty safe bet to start along Syracuse's defensive line. There's nobody else really along that defensive line that can match David Reese's resume. Let's get into the linebacker core. I do believe that linebacker is a question for Syracuse this upcoming season. But having said that, I believe we know the top 2 players. It's probably going to be a veteran and Derek McDonald, and it's going to be South Dakota transfer Gary Bryant. Of course, both these linebackers have a lot to prove. Derek McDonald is going to be is going to have to be more of a leader than he has ever had to be before for Syracuse. He does not have Michael Jones or Marlowe Wax next to him. It's on Derek McDonald now. And with Gary Bryant, his partner, I guess, he's an FCS transfer. I'm not burying Gary Bryant. I'm not saying Gary Bryant can't come in and be an all ACC player. I mean, hey, I'm open to it. Maybe he really is that good. Sure. But he's got to prove it. But as of right now, you look at the other linebackers for Syracuse football and who could potentially be competing for a starting job. You got a true freshman, Antoine Delorier. You got another veteran in Anwar Sparrow. Are those guys really going to take a starting job in fall camp away from Derek McDonald, who's got plenty of experience starting games, away from Gary Bryant, who, yes, is an FCS transfer, but seems like as of right now, he's probably their best option to start? I don't think either of them are taking those spots, but maybe you feel differently. Feel free to comment in the comments section below your thoughts on who you think is going to start for Syracuse at linebacker in 2025. At least at the start of the season, I think it's Derek McDonald and Gary Bryant. I believe those two are pretty much safe in their roles. Then you got Duce Chestnut and Devin Grant. They are the leaders of Syracuse's secondary, and you can make an argument they're the 2 big leaders for Syracuse's defense in general. They were both starters last season. They are very versatile. They can play corner. They can play probably either safety position. They can play down in the box as well. There's no reason to believe that these guys are not going to be at the top of the depth chart come opening day against Tennessee. Now, where are they going to play? Duce is probably going to be one of the 2 safeties. I don't know if he's going to be the strong safety or the free safety, but he's probably going to be one of them. And then Devin Grant is probably going to be the quote-unquote star, which is the 5th defensive back in Syracuse's defensive system. They run at 4-2-5 under Elijah Robinson. So it's 4 down defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 5 defensive backs on the field. Devin Grant is likely going to be that 5th defensive back for Syracuse football. And then I want to talk about a couple of players now where I don't know if they're fully safe, but they're pretty close. Barry Buxton, he is likely going to be a starting safety for Syracuse football, and he actually made 5 starts a year ago for the Orange. I think he's definitely up there. I think he's going to be more of a leader for Syracuse in 2025. But because he did start 5 games last season. But aside from that, he still has a lot to prove. So I could see someone else stepping up and potentially taking his job if he does not perform. But I think it's close to safe that Barry Buxton is going to start. Then you got Demetrius Samuel Jr., a 17-year-old true freshman, consensus 4-star recruit, one of the highest rated Syracuse recruits in a very long time. He projects as the number 1 corner for the Orange. Yeah, a 17-year-old 4-star projects as the number 1 corner. That's pretty impressive for Demetrius Samuel. I don't think I'm kind of moving off what I originally thought, which was that he was basically a lock to be the number 1 corner. I think he's close. But I'm not going to count out Georgia transfer Chris Peel, and I'm not going to count out sophomore Davian Kerr and what Davian Kerr did last season, starting the final 4 games. So as of right now, I think Demetrius Samuel will be the number 1 corner. I think Barry Buxton will be a starting safety. They are pretty close to being safe, in my opinion, in those roles, but it is not a guarantee.